Afternoon, gang. Hope you're good. Welcome back to another week of Chewing It Over episodes, of which you'll be relieved to know mostly guests. You're not going to get me monologuing much this week at all. Maybe Friday, might put a bit of a special in there. But yeah, thanks for joining me again. It was really interesting last week. We had some great chat on the live chat function, but also the guests. I mean, Tom Jessen was on Monday announcing the launch of his book, which out the Tuesday. That's gone off, so I'm over the moon about that. Obviously, going to take all the credit for every book sold and be leveraging that for future use. But also, it turns out that's what we do on Mondays. We talk about books of my friends and colleagues, and so I've got Emma Brockwell on the show today. Absolutely delighted to have her. So without me wittering a potted introduction, I'm going to try to get Emma straight in, and we can have a chat about what she's been up to. Emma, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. I've got everything connected, unlike a moment ago.
Everything's all the leads are where they need to be.
Yeah.
So, as I've just said, we talk about recent book launches on Monday shows on Chewing It Over. It seems now you've got a new book out, which is called "Why Did No One Tell Me? How to Protect, Heal, and Nurture Your Body Through Motherhood." Very exciting. It's been we've known of it for a while, and it's just felt like that day has been looming.
Yeah.
How have you been in recent days? I bet it's been a bit of a whirlwind.
Oh, it's been amazing. It's been quite intense. There's quite a few opportunities that have come my way from a social media point of view. So they're quite exciting, but they're quite labour intensive, as all of these things are. So they're sort of coming up over the next couple of weeks. Do you know, I've just been so blown away by the support that I've got from writing the book. I was really I was really nervous about releasing the book because I want it to do well. I want it to be getting the right information across, and I want my peers to like it too. And you guys are the ones that I'm nervous about, my peers, because it has to be evidence-based and it has to be putting across the right message. And so far, the response has been amazing, like so much support. And I think how lucky we are to work in a profession that offers the amount of support we do to other colleagues. So thank you for not hating the book so far. And I hope the positivity continues. That's my hope.
Can you imagine how nasty it would be for me to smuggle like a scathing critique in now? If it's like, well, now we're here, Emma, I've got a few bones to pick with you.
I'm waiting for it.
No, I haven't got my hands on a copy yet, but also I'm not quite that guy. But I think one of the things we were just reflecting on, because I'm really pleased to hear that you've had that experience. I'm not surprised. I think in part because I know how I'm feeling about this, which is just, and it's coincided with you and Tom, who's in our close sort of network of thinkers that we work with closely now, and I think it's just a massive admiration that I have, and I think that others will have, to actually just have got the work done. Like those of us that are not just clinicians, but also then in this sort of educational space, advocacy space, trying to raise standards. We all kind of know that is, especially typically, that is the way that you're meant to do it. Get your, work your ideas up, then get them on paper, and then publish that through. But so few of us actually get around to doing that, and so few of us actually it's worth doing. And so when you do, I'm so pleased that you're seeing everyone, really celebrate that, because I know that's how I'm feeling. Is that, I'm so glad that you're doing it, because it's definitely your ideas need to be perpetuated in various different mediums, and I love that it is doing. What has been one thing I haven't really got into with you even privately is like, what was the core motivation for writing the book, and how did it come about?
I guess the real motivation were my patients that I see every day. I'm fed up with hearing actually the titled question, why did no one tell me? Because there's nothing more heartbreaking than women coming into your clinic, realizing that possibly they have, let's say, a pelvic organ prolapse, and not necessarily angry that they have these symptoms, but just angry that no one told them about these symptoms, or that they might occur. And this is a real failing, I think, because we don't need to sugarcoat pregnancy, childbirth, and postnatal recovery for women. We're all adults. We possibly shouldn't expect to go through such huge physical changes without some physical symptoms occurring. And what frustrates women often, because by the time they've seen me, it's taken them sometimes a few years to get to me, is they're just so disappointed that they weren't informed and then told about how to treat these symptoms sooner. So for me, it was really, I'm just fed up with hearing the why did no one tell me? And I wanted to be able to offer some advice and support and empower women so that they can react to these symptoms sooner, but even better, prevent these symptoms as well. Another motivator has been my own personal experience. I've had pelvic floor issues after having my children, and I was a MSK physio before I went into pelvic health physio. And really, my pregnancy with my son was dreadful. And my postnatal recovery was awful. And at that time, I just thought, this isn't okay. This is stuff I should be knowing about. And not only did I learn about it, but I also developed a real passion for it. And therefore I specialised. And my final motivation for writing the book is because it might sound cheesy, but I have a daughter and I have a stepdaughter. And if they choose to have children, I sure as hell do not want to hear them say, oh, Mum, why did no one tell me that this might happen? Because why shouldn't we be telling women that these things are potentially going to happen, or at least how to prevent them happening? So 3 motivations: patients, me, and my kids.
Fantastic. No, that's brilliant. And now I always try to, especially those of you that are tuning in live, I know most of you are catching this afterwards and we get your questions afterwards. And so please don't be shy to get in touch with you're listening to this afterwards. But if you are tuning in live, I'd love to ask you guys to join us on the chat and sort of ask any questions that you might have for Emma about the book or otherwise. But typically I want to ask you a question as to what do you feel, as mostly an MSK audience that we have, but what would you feel are the areas that do you agree with Emma's suggestion that these things aren't talked about nearly enough? And if so, why do you think that is? Because that's my next question for Emma, really, as to why did no one tell you? Like, why is that still there? And I know a little bit about your analysis being fairly thorough, that it's not one thing, but generally speaking, what would you say are the sort of key analytical points you've made when wondering as to why it is that no one's sort of speaking up about this stuff?
I think if we think about women as to why they're not speaking up about it, it's because a lot of women are embarrassed. It takes about 7 years for the average woman to go to their healthcare professional and discuss these issues. I also think that they're a taboo thing to talk about, and a lot of women don't realise that possibly their girlfriend has got the same symptoms. They are horribly common, which doesn't make them normal, but they are common, and women don't always recognise that. I also think sometimes when they go to the healthcare professional, they're often told, well, you know what, you've had a baby, women leak urine after having a baby, but it carry on, wear some pads. So we're not offering treatment, we're just offering ways of managing these symptoms. And because a lot of issues that can occur, particularly around pelvic health, don't necessarily cause pain, women can just push them aside and think, well, you know what, if I avoid the trampoline or if I just wear a pad, then things will be fine. It doesn't hurt, it's just a real annoyance and sometimes a bit of an embarrassment. So I think the whole narrative on this whole subject has to change. And the first thing to say is that, yes, as I've said, these issues are really common, but they are not normal. And the best thing is they can be treated for the majority of women as well. I think in terms of healthcare professionals and medical professionals and even fitness professionals, I wonder if there's a bit of an embarrassment about asking women about these things as well. And how best to approach the subject. I know we've spoken about it before. How do particularly male professionals ask women about these symptoms, but also make it relatable to the symptom that the woman's there being treated for? And that's difficult. I don't know. Since you've been more in the world of pelvic health, or have a better understanding of awareness of it, has your approach changed to how you potentially screen women for it, or are you still figuring that out? Where are you in that journey?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I'm definitely in a spot where there's sort of 2 parts to it. One is that I am always refining that message and trying to make sure that things are professionally appropriate to raise, that I'm timing it well with regards to where the rapport is at, that there's the appropriate caveats in place where necessary, sometimes by using humor where appropriate, in recognizing the elephant in the room, that what maybe would I know of these things, but equally I need to make sure that they are relevant, or I feel they're becoming relevant as part of our conversation so far. But then it's almost I think I've probably allowed for that maturity of thought to develop slowly until I kind of work with you guys a bit more closely. And now that process is in a bit of a pressure cooker, because coming to understand the incredible importance of that stuff, and that any basic sort of squeamishness I might have, or in and around those taboos, or any making the mistakes in that direction, I think I was on a bit of a go slow with it, and it wasn't prioritized enough for me. Whereas now, getting to know the statistics as well as the stories, as well as being more closely associated with yours and Gronya and others' work in this area, has made me realize, like, that is such a minor symptom, a consequence on me and my colleagues, and that it's just tough shit. And we need to get stuck in, and we need to get used to it, get better at it, but also that speed of which we need to instigate change. There's just far more of an urgency to it than I ever anticipated. And I think as well it coincides, as you know, with us having children.
Yeah, I agree.
And so you then end up with that. I used the word maturity. It's like that is also what's happening, is you kind of just becoming more worldly wise to the effects of these things. And also then you're meeting, it's not just us being parents, you're meeting more parents, you're meeting more consequences. Or I'm asking more careful questions when I'm doing strength and conditioning work with Charlotte's hockey team. And I'm getting them to do hurdles over hockey sticks and stuff. And they're all sort of winking and nudging at each other and saying, "Oh, I'd rather not, Jack. I've had children." And so me, historically, probably not, it'd have gone over my head.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, well, not. Actually, I'm not okay with that, or I'm not okay with that. I mean, I'm not going to overlook that. Let's not accept that as normal, like you said. So I hope that gives an answer, because I definitely we're all about trying to raise awareness and standards in this game, and that's what's really exciting about the timing as well, with you bringing this book out. It's not just for. There's one of the things to clarify. It's actually written for the lay lady. It's not a clinician book. Although there's plenty in there for clinicians to get stuck into, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's predominantly for women who are thinking of getting pregnant, who are pregnant and who have just had their baby. I do think it is helpful for clinicians or fitness professionals who are working with women but aren't necessarily specialising in the perinatal world or pelvic health world. But I just think, what I hope, if I just go back for a minute, of what I hope happens, and I think is going to happen, is I just hope we get better at screening with our MSK screening, including pelvic health within that. And I do think that's where the power of things like Pelvic Health Live are going to come in, because for too long now, pelvic health has been seen as this subsection of physio, but it's just another part of MSK. It's just another part of physio, and we all need to be working together, collaborating together so much more to create a holistic approach to how we treat not just women but men. I mean, I am not a men's health physio. I've never gone down that road, unfortunately, as yet. But we know that men's health, that there's a huge issue with pelvic health in men's world, and I would love as well to see more MSK, particularly male physios, going down that road, because I think that's a really exciting road to go down as well. So I think by us talking and having books out like this and having conferences like you're going to do on the 6th of March, I just think it's really powerful, and I do see change on the horizon, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, sometimes maybe because we're stuck in it, and maybe we're convincing ourselves that the tide's turning, but it does feel like we're doing that, and it's your work that's helped. Our ability to be able to point to yourself and others in that space is really empowering for us, because otherwise we would just be like, oh, maybe next year, but we just keep putting that off. There's a couple of things though that I want to just flag with that, where pelvic health and women's health has been separate. I mean, it's a maturity of that term. To go to pelvic health really, and things where women's health, it was therefore almost made taboo by its language and topic. But then also it felt like it is one of those areas that granted, people were siloing it and therefore not going there, but also there were a bit of protectionism that I at least perceived. And even had my fingers burnt a few times. It's like there were certain times where I was quite willing to, when we were talking about specific recruitment, or we're talking about various different circumstances, when we're talking about mechanisms of effective interventions, where a number of years ago I recall then people saying, you're painting with too broad a brush because in women's health that's really relevant. To which I'd then say, well, please, just explain more. It's like, well, you just want to understand it. It wasn't. It was that there was a protectionism around. Well, there's an internal logic. I can't believe I've just used that.
Pardon the pun.
Exactly, but there is something here that's so relevantly different to MSK that you just won't get it, can't get it, and we're not actually willing to teach it. And I was coming at it very openly, trying to understand it. Now, do you think that has my experience been quite unique there, or do you feel like you can recognise some of that?
No, I think unfortunately your experience is probably had by a lot of us, and not just you as a male. I remember when I did my women's health placement as a junior physio. It's not even called junior anymore, is it? It's band 5. I'm so old. But when I was a junior, I did my women's health placement and I was really excited about it. And I thought, I think there's something in this. And I remember some of my peers, my seniors, actually saying, this is kind of the profession that you take on when you've had a couple of kids and you want to work part-time, and it's just lovely because you can really relate to your patients. And I thought, oh, right, okay, well, I'm 23 or however old I was, because I did a degree before physio. And I thought, oh, fine, well, I'll park that thought for some time.
See you in a few
I'll
decades,
see you in a few, a decade. And I look back with such regret on that. Someone like Gronya, who is my co-presenter on At Your Cervix, just in case no one knew, she really embraced women's health immediately. And actually, when I reflect on how she did that, it was quite a brave move, because she probably didn't receive that much support from her seniors as a result of doing that. So she had some good foresight, and I've got a few colleagues that had some good foresight with that. I wish I'd had that. But I do think for too long now, we've, as pelvic health physios, we've possibly been keeping ourselves within our silos as well. And I think social media has helped change that. I mean, I have to say, social media has opened up so many opportunities for physios, but pelvic health physio in particular, because it's given us a route in to speak to women. And then we've realised the importance of what we've been doing, and it's given us confidence to talk more and more and more. So there's lots of reasons for it changing, but it has to change for the greater good of all men and women.
Yeah, I mean, your good friend and my colleague, I don't know if she'd want to associate me as a friend, but Elaine Miller has been on Physio Matters, and she was really upfront about the policy implications of the workforce issue that comes with the fact that, of course, trying to proliferate women's health, pelvic health, making people more skilled and understanding in that direction is one thing. But if we can, why on earth we wouldn't simultaneously try to improve awareness amongst MSK physios as well as any, say, physios or other therapists as well simultaneously, and therefore anything that goes against that message is just going to be counterproductive. And so on a practical policy level, just for workforce planning, that's the sort of thing we need to do. Now, Gronya and yourself, it's really interesting for me to have witnessed. It's the first time I feel like I've really engaged with people that they're not putting on a pelvic health hat. They're reasoning with holistic variables affecting someone's disabilities or whatever they might present with. And I think that integration just feels more compatible. It doesn't feel like a bolt-on that I might maybe visit one day. It might, or if I go there, I'll need to then study it to high heaven. It's like, well, no, this is integrated reasoning. It's actually a body area that you're overlooking, but fundamentally your reasoning and your logic and the mechanism of effective interventions and the way in which your communication and rapport is going to naturally match this up well. That's made it feel more compatible, and it's taken for you guys to articulate that. And also, even in the excerpts so I haven't got my hands on a copy of your book
I need to send you one then. I thought you had one.
Well, I'm waiting for the signed copy. That's
Oh,
the
well,
main
I've got
thing,
my
but
copy
yeah.
for you right here.
Oh, how excited! Right. Well, the excerpts I've seen on Google Books, the bits of redacted, etc., that I've been scratching around for, waiting for said signed copy. Right. So the bits in there that seem fascinating is that you're translating some of this material that you've come to understand in your experiences and the evidence in such a way that then if this is almost like the first draft, I'm just fascinated because it just feels like it's been through layers of your thought to think, no, I'm gonna explain that a little bit more carefully. I'm gonna go that bit further to make sure it's translated to the lay person. How was that process, and was it something that kind of you took to that translation work really easily, or did it take a few passes to get there?
Yeah, loads.
Right.
Actually, I have to say that I was incredibly lucky that I had Grania to liaise with a lot with the book, because some of what I was saying, I don't think reflected strongly enough with an MSK bias as to what we now know. So in terms of things like posture and pelvic girdle pain, I don't think my first drafts were accurate enough in terms of what the evidence is now showing. I'm not trying to take anything away from myself because it still is, still had to put the hard graft in. But when you work with someone like Grania, who has I have a very MSK and pelvic health hat on, but she has a real MSK and pelvic health hat on, because I think
always integrated.
She is always really integrated. I don't know if, and that's partly because she's a super brain. So, we can't all have that brain, but that is partly as well. I wonder if because her husband's a MSK physio as well, and I reckon those two geek it out every night. They have to, but they're so up to date with their evidence. And what I really had to do was get more up to date with my MSK evidence, because I'm acutely aware of some of the messaging that we put out in the pelvic health world isn't quite tying up with the messaging that's being put out in the MSK world. And again, we need to just meet together to define those similarities and make sure that we are all spreading the same message. And that will come from working more with the likes of yourself and Jim. Sorry, Jim. Sorry.
Jim. Stick with Jim. He's actually on the chat as well.
Oh, is he? Sorry, Jim. I'm never sure if you're Jim or Jack in normal world or chewing it over world. You must be Jim.
He's got his Jim everywhere, and I'm trying to persuade his parents to start calling him Jim as well. But now you mention it, he actually asked a question in the chat that I've overlooked until now, because you just reminded me. But he said, "Is there an industry desire to retain these issues, such as with panty liners and pads, etc.?" So let's go there, because Fiona has also weighed in. Thank you, Fiona, saying, having worked for a multinational who makes women's products, I think it'll be a challenge to get them fully on board due to the impact on their profits. Certainly something that we've spoken again on air with Elaine with before. But can we just touch on that for a couple of minutes, because that is a big force, isn't it, for us to be reckoning with?
Yeah, huge. I think Elaine Miller's done an incredible job with these pad companies, to be honest. She goes at them hammer and tongs. They have come around more to changing their messaging, and that is that pads are for managing your symptoms until you get better. And the messaging was always before, if you leak urine, don't worry about it. Just put in a pad and carry on. And that's just naff and awful and terrible. And what we have to remember is one of the main reasons older women get put into nursing homes is because of incontinence. And it is not acceptable that we are saying to women, look, put a pad in, when we know that there's us that can help get you better. So Elaine's been key in trying to change that messaging and working with those companies. We can't work against them, because that's just not going to achieve anything. We have to find, again, some common ground where we can still make sure that they're in profit, because they have to be and want to be, but also that they're getting across the message that we exist. And I don't know if this has happened yet, but I do know she was in talks to try and get on the pad some messaging. See a pelvic health physio if you're using this product. And that's so cool. And she's so clever with such simple messaging. We can work together so that no one's out of pocket in its entirety. But fundamentally, what's important here? Money or women not leaking urine?
Well, I mean, there's no way that those two things need to be mutually exclusive. It's like, why on earth that, there's no way that couldn't even feed into it. If their messaging was sharper and tidier, and that had industry on side, had worked hand in glove with the healthcare world, that feels like it could have an enhancement, especially because they've exhausted the other way. Then there's surely another way of going about that. I'm giggling because I'm just thinking that. So Elaine's idea is to put messaging on the pad, and now in my head I've got that it's invisible, and it only is then when wet. Like those mugs that change what the picture is when they're warm.
You can take that, Elaine, if that part of your plan hadn't been put in place, because I do think what a cracking idea, and I'm just so bored of this oops moment rubbish. I mean, it's so it's horrible. It's just insulting, and it's patronizing to women. So, we're really lucky in our pelvic health world that we have the likes of Elaine, who are championing us doing what we're doing, but also keeping those companies on side so we can all work together. It's awesome.
Yeah, sure. Well, Granya's got back to us, and she said that I assume she's meaning her and her husband. They don't even speak to each other, never mind about work.
Well, they've got 4 kids. How can they speak to each other?
This is what's hilarious about the fact that they're doing any work whatsoever. It's incredible. But fascinating. But thanks, Grania. I love that. Me and you are talking about our friends.
I know. Sorry, Grania.
We didn't even think, did we? But yeah, Louise Huntley, thank you for commenting, Louise. She said, in MSK, we're coming away from activating, isolating small, deep muscles like trans abs and multifidus. Is that the same in pelvic health physio? Now, before you answer that, because we're nearly out of time, me and your partner in crime, Grania, are going to get stuck into questions just like that.
Amazing. Are you?
Therapy Live Pelvic Health on the 6th of March. We're going to do a piece whereby me and Grania are going to, almost like a live discussion, live podcast. We did this off air just because she was schooling me on this stuff the other day. And I was just like, this is incredible content. People need to know this. So it's a fantastic question, Louise. We are going to visit that in detail because there are areas where it's definitely behind, but there are areas where we do need to be careful not to be as dismissive of some of the selective recruitment stuff. Where selective recruitment for back pain, you're right, we've moved past it. Selective recruitment for pelvic floor for trying to get activation patterns back, certainly a better evidence base for it, and makes more logical sense when you uncouple that from pain. So that's the sort of example. I've probably stolen the thunder from the answer there a little bit, Emma, but is there anything you want to pass comment on with that?
No, I just want to say, I think that conversation that you and Grania have is essential in helping the world of pelvic health move forwards. There are still, I'm sure, some pelvic health physios that do just isolate. I'd love to say and hope that my patients would say that I don't do that because I don't believe in that approach. And I don't think the majority of pelvic health physios do. Pelvic health physio, I just want to say, don't just teach pelvic floor exercises. And this is one, this is the reputation. This is the myth that we need to bust. But Louise, I think it was Louise, wasn't it? Yeah, I think you're spot on. And we are headed that way. And a chat by Jack and Grania is going to really help consolidate that beautifully.
Well, pressure's on, Grania, if you're still listening. We've got this, but we've got.
Yeah, sorry, Grania, no pressure.
Yeah, so that brings me on to final things that to make you guys aware of. First one is that Pelvic Health Therapy Live, Emma and Grania have got their Live at Your Cervix podcast. If you haven't tuned into their podcast already, then please go and check that out. It's an incredible resource. I mean, we would say that we're very involved in it as producers, but also I know the work that's going into it, and I know what they've got in store. So do check that out. There's a live one, of course, with Jessica Pinn, which I've got to mention that I came up with what it's got to be the pun of the show, which is clitorally speaking. So they're going to be talking about the anatomy of the clitoris and all the relevant variables that come from that.
Oh, you've gone. But you told me to keep speaking when you'd gone, so I'm going to, but I might be talking over you. Clitoris speaking with Jessica Pinn is going to be amazing. She's been through quite the journey. So we'll be talking about her labiaplasty as well, and how she's championing huge change in how medics are taught anatomy. I kept talking.
Did I go?
Yeah.
Are we still live? What happened?
Thank you, Katie. Katie Napton said, "Brilliant work, Emma." I think she's But because everything always goes with me and technology, so I just kept wittering on about Jessica Pin. I hope that was okay. Are you frozen again? You're back.
I think I don't know what's happening. Am I here? Or am I?
You're back. You're back.
I know what's happened. I need to. It's hilarious. I'm trying to use this device. I bet it's out of credit. I bet I need to go and top it up like a old Nokia phone.
Heck.
So yeah, we're back on the Wi-Fi. I think it's working, but we're out of time anyway. So apologies for that, guys. But I'm sure I'm held caught well. So I don't know if you heard what I was saying about all this session in pelvic therapy live. If you haven't got your ticket already, then go and get them before they're gone. Thousands of people are going to be joining us to talk about these very topics and why it's important that we raise standards and awareness in this area. Emma, make sure you buy the book. If not you buy the book, sorry. Make sure you buy Emma's book. I'm putting the link back in the chat function before Jim tells me off. So make sure you go and snap that up on Amazon, Waterstones, any other good bookshops. And then also, the final thing to say is that I'm noticed Leanne Antoine is in the comments as well. Thanks for tuning in, Leanne. She's going to be guest hosting tomorrow, doing what is going to be a monthly slot with Leanne as guest host. She's got a great show in store for you tomorrow. So really looking forward to that. In the meantime, I'm gonna get lost because we're over time now after my internet glitched. But any final things you want to say, Emma, and any other, just at least drop your social media handles for us.
Oh yeah, so if you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram as @PhysioMumUK. I'm on Twitter, but I'm not very good at Twitter. Emma_PhysioMum. And yeah, Gráinne and I have our next episode of At Your Cervix coming out. I think it's in 2 weeks, and we're going to be talking about breast health. So a little diversion from runners and pelvic health, but hopefully that'll be one for everyone, because it can make such a difference to female athletes and to recreational athletes as well. So it's one to listen to for sure.
Absolutely, that's brilliant. Really looking forward to that, and thanks as ever for your time, and congratulations on the book. It's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you for your support, guys.
Take care, all the best.
Thanks, guys. See you later. Bye.